Alright, welcome. We made it over here. The good thing about the museum and the Taylor House being so close together is it's a really close walk. And if you take a field trip here with us, especially if it's a full day field trip, normally when you're walking from station to station, the Taylor House and the museum are normally combined together somehow. So this building is arguably one of the, if not the most popular building in Jonesborough. We like to joke on staff that if you're in here for any reason, if we have to stop in here just to drop something off, if that door is open, someone's going to come here. So we actually have the doors closed, which might be cutting down our light a little bit, but it's to make sure people don't come through here. But it's just that attractive of a building. And one of the things that makes it so attractive is its look. So this is what you would expect a log cabin to look like. If someone said, I'm going to show you a log cabin, this would be the textbook definition of what a log cabin looks like. So the building itself was originally constructed in the 1770s, completed sometime around 1778. So it predates the town of Jonesborough's official founding by at least a year. So as Ann is looking around, what you're seeing here with this structure, a cobweb right there, the log structure is the sort of the original portion of the building. So the building itself was completed, as I mentioned, around 1778, but it was not completed here. If you're familiar with the area down on State Route 34 around the Judge Vines Road area, near the plant, that's the around the original site of this home. It was on that site from the 1770s through the early 1970s. In the early 1970s, the building had sort of started to fall apart a little bit. It was not in the best shape. And so the effort was taken, instead of tearing it down, which was part of a possibility, the effort was taken to actually purchase the cabin or the home and actually relocate it here to Jonesborough. Now, the relocation process on a home like this or a structure like this is fairly, it's more common than you might think. But there were a couple of steps taken. First, there was siding that had been added to the building. So if you walk over here, you might be able to see that a little bit better in this picture. Basically, fine sawed like clapboard siding had been added to the building, and actually had been added to the building a lot longer than people might have realized. It's very likely that the Taylor family, even when the Taylor family lived here, there was probably siding on it over the exterior logs that made it look more like that than it looks now. But most of that siding some of that siding had been damaged and was starting to fall into disrepair. So that was removed, and underneath the siding, the log structure that was here originally still remained. Now, the log structure was not necessarily designed to be the thing that you saw on the outside for a long time. It was sort of like the temporary shelter until they could, make it look more, make it look nicer, basically, by adding siding and things and adding onto it. But this would have served as the initial shelter and structure for the family that was here. So, in the preservation process, the siding was removed and the log structure was preserved. Now, a couple reasons for that. One, this is the original structure. So the original plan was to preserve the actual original portion of the building, the oldest part of the building. And the other part ties into that thing that I mentioned at the beginning. This looks like an old home. This looks like an old log cabin. So the appearance was certainly part of that process as well. So this is actually the exterior logs are the original portion of the building. If you look around on the inside, you'll see basically new lumber. You can tell, and if you walk in here, you can tell pretty easily if you're familiar with woodwork. This is you can look at the planks on the second story floor. It's finely sawed lumber. It's modern tools were used. You can tell just by the cut of it. So the idea on the inside of the cabin or the home was to give it some usability, stuff that we can actually walk around. We can use the space, but to remain as true to the nature of the home as possible. So again, if you're looking at the floorboards down here, you can see right here I'm pointing. Things like wooden pegs and wooden nails would have been used. Wrought iron nails in the original construction might have been used as well. You can see them really well here with this wood piece. So doing things like that to sort of capture on the essence of the home. Looking here on the, we'll use this one. You've got wooden hinges. So when you open it, you get that nice authentic cabin creak that you would expect. So those are the things that you see today with the home. So looking around this space today, we use this home in a bunch of different ways. We use it for programming. Obviously not this year. A lot of things have been pushed back, like most other places. But on like a Saturday afternoon in the summer, we'll have like storytellers or crafters or something in here. Just to get people in here. People love the building, and we love to talk about the building. But it's a nice open space, except for this part. We have taken up some of the space. It's covered, but we're going to show a video about this a little bit later. This is an 18th century loom, so it's a loom from the 1700s. It's actually the loom that had been housed in the Jonesborough, Washington County History Museum for several years, and just recently has been actually brought over here. And a very lovely volunteer, Jan Turner, has been actually restoring the loom and actually getting it back to where it's actually producing goods off of it. So there will be a video on that later with a little bit more detail. We don't know that there was a loom here in this home when the Taylor family lived here. I guess we should point that out. But looking around here, this is everything. This is your dining room. This is your living room. Everything would have been sort of here in this spot. Now, if you're looking for the kitchen, you're not going to find one here. The kitchen likely would have been separate. A kitchen fireplace would need to be a little bit wider and deeper than the fireplace that is in here. This is a large fireplace, especially for a room of this size. But given the nature of the size of this room, you would need a large fireplace, especially in the winter time to keep the room warm. But if you wanted to cook, your fire needed to be going pretty much constantly. You need a larger fireplace. So the kitchen likely would have been in a separate structure. Basically, all that's left from the original home is this exterior log structure of the shelter. Now, if you're looking for bedrooms, anything like that, this is basically the start of your modern open floor layout. For all of you real estate people out there that might be watching. This is an open concept floor. The same thing for the upstairs, which is where most of the sleeping would have been done. Now, you may know this if you're familiar with the cabin and the Taylor family and the history. But are there any guesses as to how many people lived here in the Taylor family? So I'm going to ask that question and let you think about it, and then we're actually going to walk upstairs, and then I'll give you guys the answer.
We will try not to make you motion sickness or fall.
Okay, so while you've had a chance to think about it, the Taylor family had 10 children. So it was Mary Taylor, Christopher Taylor, and their 10 children. So imagine sharing this space with 9 siblings. If you've got siblings out there, think about that and how fun or not fun that might be. On top of that, it is reported that Christopher Taylor would routinely take in boarders or travelers So we just left the Chester Inn, especially in the late 1800s. It was more common to stay at an inn or a hotel. In the late 1700s, when the area was still relatively new and being established, certainly 1779 with the establishment of Jonesborough, we're still almost 20 years away from Tennessee even being a state. If you were traveling, you might not stay at an inn or a hotel, you might just stay with someone. And the Taylor family would routinely take in boarders. One of the most famous travelers that was attached to the Taylor home through reports is Andrew Jackson, who spent some time here early in his career before he made his way further west to Nashville. So Andrew Jackson spent some time here, also spent some time in the Chester Inn Museum, or in the Chester Inn, before it was a museum. So this space, while it's very big and open for a one-person bedroom, might get crowded if you're sharing this room with 6, 7, 8 other people and then taking travelers in as well. But I'm really excited about the virtual field trip, because this is arguably one of the most asked questions that we get here that we just cannot let people up here. If you looked around downstairs and look up, you saw some holes in the floor. You can see that here. And you might be able to tell this, as I'm talking, I talk a lot with my hands, I'm bouncing the floor. So just, it's not very sturdy up here. But you get a feel for the ceiling, the height of the ceiling. You also see, again, like downstairs, it's another open floor concept, just a big wide open space. Now, it's very likely that there would have been beds of some sort, very possibly rope beds or something like that for the Taylor family or Taylor children. A chimney up here as well on the second floor. So for the area and for the time period, it's a very large home. Christopher Taylor himself was fairly prominent in the area, made his name as a sort of military veteran, served in the American Revolution, fought at Kings Mountain. When the war was over, spent time in local politics, supported the proposed state of Franklin, which ultimately did not succeed, but his career was still active. He made money in the area as a landowner and a local politician, supported John Sevier during the state of Franklin, and then further on when Sevier was the first governor of Tennessee. So Taylor was fairly wealthy. So this home is very large, especially for when it was first built in the 1770s. By the time that Taylor was approaching the end of his life, he started to disperse his property, which included hundreds of acres of land, which primarily went to his sons, and then his daughters received not acreage of land, but did receive some enslaved people that had been with the Taylor family. Mary, Christopher Taylor, his wife, received a widow's pension after he passed away from his service in the Revolution. But looking around this space, we talked about the kitchen would likely have been separate. Any enslaved people that were staying here with the Taylor family on their farm or on their property likely also would have been in a separate quarters as well. But again, this is all that remains from that property on the original site. So let me go ahead and are there any questions that anybody
want to open that back up?
Cute.
So Joe's going to open that back up so we can check on questions. But I have one real quick. Why was the Christopher Taylor house moved?
Why was the Taylor house moved?
And why was it moved here to Main Street, Jonesborough?
So the original, the original site, as I mentioned, has started to fall in. There was a proposed construction on the original site, so part of the plan was to get rid of this home and allow the new construction to continue. But as I mentioned, it was purchased and relocated. I guess I should have mentioned, and this is a very key part of Jonesborough history. It was relocated, and in many ways, became the symbol of Jonesborough's efforts in preservation. So the relocation here in the early 1970s really coincided with Jonesborough's push for historic preservation and emphasizing preservation as a movement. So just a few years before the cabin was relocated, organizations such as the Historic Zoning Commission, the Civic Trust had been founded and had already taken steps to promote the history of Jonesborough, the history of the town as the oldest town in Tennessee, promote the preservation of older buildings like this. And it's actually one of my favorite stories about this building and preservation in general, is preservation tells us as much as it does about the present as it does about the past. Personally, on this site, before the Taylor house was moved here, there was a very nice two-story brick home. It was a Dosser home that was torn down in 1940. And it was torn down so that there could be a nice modern gas station on this site. Because in 1940 there wasn't that much of a push for preservation, especially as a movement, not just in Jonesborough, but nationally. It hadn't really become a thing yet. By the early 1970s, especially with the looming bicentennial celebration, preservation was in full swing, museums were in full swing. So the nice modern gas station, which wasn't quite so modern by the 1970s, was torn down and replaced with this home. And this home is in many ways, as I mentioned, one of the most popular buildings in town, but it's also the symbol of Jonesborough's efforts in preservation. Which is also interesting because if you see pictures of that gas station, that's a building that today most places would kill to have. It's a super interesting,
very retro,
very 1940s, 1950s gas station. So, but yes, that's a good question. And somebody else also asked a question. The siding that was on the house. Let's see. We don't know. The question was the siding painted? It's possible, not sure. I'm inclined to think no, but it is possible that it might have been, but I don't think that it was.
And I will comment, because Joe's done such a wonderful job about talking about preservation, that Preservation 101 is usually save the building where it is, but sometimes that's not a choice. You have to move it to save it. And there are two other buildings you're going to see today that were also moved to save them. If you tuned in for Oak Hill School, that's the first one, and then you'll see the third one later on today. So, Joe, what is that between the logs?
Yes, so this is also something that I personally, if you ever come in here and there's someone in here talking about the history of the Taylor family and the cabin, and it's me, you get stuck with this part of it. I spend way more time talking about this. I normally don't on field trip days, but since you asked, what you have here, again, this is the log structure, and it looks really wonky right here, but the log structure was preserved. In between the structure is what you'd have, where you have your chinking or daubing. Basically, seal the cracks, right? So if you're building a modern cabin, or if you're trying to restore a cabin, there are a lot of nice modern polymers and things that you can fill in. Definitely not historically accurate, but if you're using a functioning home that's designed like this, something that sort of shrinks and grows with the temperature, it's more well suited for insulation, those sorts of things. Those are very common. As I mentioned with the process, I don't think I finished my thought, but when the cabin was moved over here, it was actually disassembled, and the logs were numbered so that the logs are actually in the spot that they were, or that they would have been on the original site. But the gaps were all were blank. So in the 1700s, some sort of mixture of like red clay, mud mixture, maybe even mixing in things like straw, hair. You could have a bunch of things: wood shavings, wood chippings, some wooden wedges we think were used as well. We actually have a couple of small wooden wedges that in our archival collection that are labeled as being part of that chinking system. This is none of those things. not only is this not historically accurate, this is also not really, it also does not have the benefit that you get with a modern polymer of really ebb and flow with temperature. This was designed to be permanent. This is basically like a concrete mixture. So it is designed to last, and it has lasted for several years since the relocation. But it is a problem for a couple of reasons. One, it is not historically accurate. It is designed to sort of invoke the appearance of what you would expect a cabin to look like. So it has that look about it, but it is also somewhat detrimental to the wood around it, which is the original portion of the building. So that we have done a lot of really good work with it. If you look up, you can see the ceiling. We just recently, I guess it's been about a year now.
Yeah, with the town of Jonesborough and the DAR.
Yes, we've repaired the roof, and it's a functioning roof now, so we can actually use the building a lot more. But you know, there are some things that still need to be replaced and improved, as Ann mentioned with Preservation 101, it never ends. It's an ongoing process.
And you learn more, like what we knew about preservation in the 1970s, we know different today.
Yes.
So the Heritage Alliance does actively work with the town of Jonesborough to help to continue to preserve the Christopher Taylor House. But yeah, a goal in the future would be to redo all of the chinking and daubing, which would be very historically accurate because you would have redone this several times in the late 1700s,
Yes.
which is where your tin children could have come in handy.
Yes, very much so.
Do we want to go back down?
Well, do we have any more questions?
I guess real quick I'll ask, and I can show it over here. Why is this called V-notch, the cabin structure?
Well, we have that nice picture downstairs.
You can see it here.
Yeah, you can see it right there. Basically, you can take one. Here, come over here real quick. Very carefully.
I'll just.
Yeah, you can lay one down here, notch it right here, and fit another one on top of it. So it connects like a V.
Yeah, think Lincoln Logs.
Yes, and yeah, that's normally my description of how this was relocated is a giant Lincoln Log project. But yes, you can take one and you can overlay it with the other and layer it up, and then that's where the chinking and daubing, you can fill in all the cracks and everything there. So it's a really very utilitarian form of construction, especially if you're in what at the time would have been the West, and especially in the 1770s, not even really the settled West. East Tennessee was very much still the frontier, or I guess what would become East Tennessee was still very much like a frontier area. So if you're in like a home like the Taylor home, you really need your shelter as quick as possible. And V-notching some logs together to get your home up and then fixing it from there, that would be very handy and very efficient. And it would last too, because this could provide a good solid foundation for a home to be covered with siding and go from there. So.
And in case y'all are wondering, yes, those are electric light sconces on the back wall. No, they would not have been here in the late 1700s. But as Joe said, when the building was moved, it had a different purpose. And for a while, it was actually the town's first visitor center. So, of course, electricity and stuff was put in to help accommodate that.
And it was headquarters it was the check-in station for the Storytelling Festival.
Yes, Storytelling Festival checked in this building for a number of years during the festival.
Really until the roof leaked so badly.
Yeah, until the roof desperately needed repair, which we're very thankful to have that new roof on the structure now. Thanks for tuning in with us, and we're going to be posting some more videos throughout the day and coming in live from the archives at 1.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.